The Wadi invasion fleet sliced through Zephyrian orbital defenses like they were made of paper. Zephyria would fall within the week. The war seemed lost, so they called in humans. The Galactic Council watched the massacre unfold on their holoscreen. Panic gripped the chamber as the Zephyrian representative, his face pale, reported that over a third of his planet was already under Wadi control. If Zephyria falls, the Wadi will have access to enough resources to conquer the entire galaxy, the Andorian councillor stated grimly. Our combined forces cannot stop them. What about the humans? Suggested the Arcturian representative. They're the only ones who haven't gotten involved yet. I've heard stories about their capabilities. Murmurs of apprehension filled the room. The humans were an enigma, a young, unpredictable species known for their aggression and resourcefulness. Contacting them was a gamble, but they were out of options. Summon their best mercenary, Stephen Campbell, the council leader decided. Offer him whatever it takes. The fate of the galaxy depends on it. Hours later, Stephen stood before the council, his muscular frame dwarfing the aliens. The scars on his face and the cold, calculating look in his eyes spoke to a lifetime of warfare. You want me and my team to stop an invasion that your combined armies can't handle? He asked bluntly, after listening to their plea. This won't be cheap. Name your price, the council leader said without hesitation. If you succeed, the reward will be astronomical. But if you fail, the Wadi will enslave us all. The galaxy's only hope rests with you and your humans, Mr. Campbell. A slow grin spread across Stephen's face. Then let's get to work. Those Wadi bastards won't know what hit 'em. As he strode out of the chamber, the council members exchanged uneasy glances. They had just bet the galaxy's future on the deadliest, most unpredictable species known to the stars. May the gods help them all. Stephen's first call was to Jack Ripper Hayes, his right-hand man. The grizzled 38-year-old former Army Ranger picked up on the first ring. Rip, it's Steve. I need you for a job. The fate of the galaxy is at stake. When isn't it? Jack chuckled. I'm in. Who else is on the team? I'm thinking Doc Reeves for medical, Ghost for recon and sniping, Tech for hacking and cyber warfare, and Hammer for demo and heavy weapons. Solid choices. When do we start? So yesterday. I'll send you the rendezvous coordinates. With the team assembled, Stephen met with a representative from the Galactic Council to discuss GI. The rep, an Arcturian named Xyloth, led them into an armory filled with advanced alien tech. Plasma rifles, standard issue for Council Spec Ops, Xyloth said, handing out sleek black weapons. More stopping power than your ballistic firearms. We've also got personal cloaking devices and a state-of-the-art stealth ship for covert insertion. What about the ship's computer? Stephen asked. Cutting-edge AI called Ares. It'll assist with navigation, comms, intel analysis, you name it. As the team geared up and boarded the stealth ship, Ares' smooth voice came over the intercom. Welcome aboard, gentlemen. I've plotted a course for Zephyria, ETA 6 hours. En route, Ares suddenly spoke up. Captain, I've intercepted a high-priority Wadi transmission. Decrypting now, it appears their Supreme Commander, Tharos himself, is personally leading the invasion. Stephen leaned forward. Tharos, huh? Taking him out could cripple their chain of command, maybe buy Zephyria some time to regroup. He pulled up a hologram of a Wadi dreadnought. Here's the plan. We'll infiltrate Tharos's command ship and take him out. Ripper, Doc, you're with me. The rest of you will use the cloaking tech to sabotage their planetary defense cannons and comms arrays. We cut off the head of the snake and sow chaos in the ranks all at once. It won't be easy, but it's our best shot. The ship dropped out of warp at the edge of the Zephyrian system. Through the viewport, they could see the burning hulks of destroyed ships and defense platforms. The Wadi fleet hung in orbit like a swarm of hungry locusts. Stephen gripped his plasma rifle tightly. This was it, the calm before the storm. In a few hours they'd either be victorious or dead. But either way, the Wadi would learn what it meant to face the fury of humanity. The stealth ship glided through space, weaving past the ruined hulks of Zephyrian ships with ease. Its advanced cloaking tech rendered it invisible to the Wadi dreadnought's sensors. Stephen gathered the team in the cargo bay, the low hum of the engines filling the air. "It's all right, listen up," he barked, his voice cutting through the tension. "We're splitting into 2 teams. Ripper, Ghost, you're with me. We're heading straight for the bridge to take out Tharos. Doc, Tech, Hammer, your job is to disable their weapons and comms. We cripple this ship, we cripple their whole damn fleet." Nods all around. They checked their gear one last time, plasma rifles charged and cloaking devices activated. The ship shuddered as it docked with the Wadi vessel, the airlock hissing open. Stephen's team moved swiftly through the corridors, their footsteps muffled by the ship's ambient noise. As they neared the bridge, a squad of Tharos's elite guard rounded the corner. Plasma bolts filled the air as the 2 groups opened fire. Jack lunged forward, his rifle forgotten as he engaged the Wadi in brutal hand-to-hand combat. He dodged a swipe from a guard's shock baton and retaliated with a devastating blow to the alien's throat, crushing its windpipe. Oliver, perched in a recessed alcove, picked off the guards one by one with precise shots from his sniper rifle. Each plasma bolt found its mark, dropping the Wadi where they stood. In the bowels of the ship, Ethan, Ryan and Michael fought their way through the engine room. Ethan laid down covering fire as Ryan hacked into a console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "I'm in," he shouted over the din of battle. "Weapons and comms going offline in 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered as its systems shut down, the lights flickering overhead. Confused Wadi chatter filled the comms as their fleet fell into disarray. Stephen and his team breached the bridge, plasma rifles at the ready. Tharos stood at the center of the room, his 4 eyes widening in surprise. "Humans," he growled, his voice like gravel. "I should have known." He lunged at Stephen, razor-sharp claws extended. Stephen met him head-on, blocking the blow and retaliating with a vicious uppercut. They traded blows back and forth, Stephen's human strength and speed matched against Tharos's alien ferocity. Jack and Oliver dispatched the remaining guards, their lifeless bodies littering the floor. The bridge descended into an eerie silence, broken only by the sounds of Stephen and Tharos's battle. Stephen saw an opening and took it, slamming his fist into Tharos's jaw. The warlord stumbled back, dazed. Stephen pressed his advantage, unleashing a flurry of blows that drove Tharos to his knees. With a final, brutal strike, Stephen caved in the alien's skull. Tharos slumped to the floor, his reign of terror ended at last. Stephen stood over the corpse, breathing heavily. Jack clapped him on the shoulder, a grim smile on his face. "We did it, Cap. The Wadi are in full retreat. Zephyria is safe." But even as they savored their victory, Stephen knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and there would always be another threat lurking in the shadows. As long as humanity stood ready to face those threats head-on, however, there was still... As news of Tharos's demise spread through the Wadi ranks, confusion and fear gripped the invading forces. Many began to retreat from their positions, desperate to escape the wrath of the humans who had slain their leader. But Stephen knew better than to let his guard down. "Ares, monitor all Wadi comms," he ordered, as they raced back to the stealth ship. "I want to know what they're planning." Minutes later, Ares's voice filled the cockpit. "Captain, I've intercepted transmissions from Zorgax, Tharos's second-in-command. He's rallying the remaining troops for a final assault on the Zephyrian capital." Stephen's grip tightened on the controls. "Like hell he is. Plot a course double-time. We need to get planetside and shore up those defenses." The ship screamed through the atmosphere, its hull glowing from the friction. As they touched down near the capital, General Zorion of the Zephyrian military strode out to meet them, his face grim. "The Wadi are coming," he said without preamble. "We have at most a few hours before they reach the city." Stephen nodded, already formulating a plan. "My team will help fortify key positions and set up ambushes. Hammer, I need you rigging buildings along the main avenues to collapse on my signal. That should funnel them into kill zones." Michael grinned, hefting his demo kit. "You got it, Cap. I'll make 'em regret ever setting foot in this city." As Michael set to work, Stephen turned to the rest of the team. "Doc, set up a triage center in the central plaza. We're going to have casualties. Ghost, Ripper, each of you take a squad of Zorian's best and hit the Wadi flanks when they arrive. Tech, jam their comms and keep ours open. Understood?" Our chorus of affirmatives, and they were moving, a well-oiled machine honed by countless battles. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation and fortification. Barricades were erected, snipers positioned, and traps laid. The city became a labyrinth of death, every street and alley a potential killing field. And then the Wadi arrived, a seething mass of fangs and claws and plasma rifles. They surged into the city like a tidal wave, crashing against the Zephyrian defenses. The air filled with the screams of the dying and the stench of burning flesh. In the thick of it all, Stephen and his team fought like demons. Jack and Oliver led their squads in surgical strikes, appearing from the shadows to sow chaos and destruction before melting away again. Ethan worked frantically to stabilize the wounded, his hands slick with blood. Ryan's fingers flew over his control pad, jamming Wadi frequencies and feeding crucial intel to the defenders. And Michael, Michael was in his element. With a savage grin, he detonated his carefully placed charges, sending buildings toppling down onto the Wadi advance. Rubble and corpses choked the streets. Slowly, inch by bloody inch, the tide began to turn. The Wadi advance faltered, then stalled, then broke. They fell back, seeking to regroup, but Stephen wasn't about to give them the chance. "Zorian, keep the pressure on," he barked into his comm. "Don't let up for a second. I'm going after Zorgax." Stephen leapt into a Zephyrian fighter, its alien controls intuitive beneath his hands. The craft roared into the sky, engines screaming as he pushed it to its limits. There, Zorgax's command ship, hanging back from the fight like the coward he was. Stephen armed his weapons and dove, plasma cannons spitting fire. Zorgax was no fool. His ship peeled away, trying to escape, but Stephen was relentless. They danced a deadly waltz through the clouds, plasma and flak filling the air. Alarms blared in Stephen's cockpit as his shields took hit after hit, but he didn't let up. With a final desperate maneuver, Stephen got behind Zorgax's ship. His thumb stabbed down on the trigger, and a lance of plasma punched through the enemy craft's engines. It spiraled out of control, trailing smoke and flame as it plummeted towards the ground. Stephen followed it down, watching with grim satisfaction as it crash-landed on the outskirts of the city. He set his own fighter down nearby and leapt out, plasma rifle in hand. The wreckage was a twisted mass of metal, sparks and ruptured power conduits. Stephen picked his way through the debris, eyes scanning for any sign of movement. There a hatch torn open by the force of the impact, and crawling out of it, bloodied but alive, was Zorgax himself. The alien commander stumbled to his feet, one hand clutching a wicked-looking plasma blade. "How you think you've won, human?" he snarled, his voice thick with pain and hatred. "You've only delayed the inevitable. The Wadi will crush you and every other pathetic race in this galaxy." Stephen raised his rifle, aiming it squarely at Zorgax's head. "Not today, they won't." He squeezed the trigger, and Zorgax's head exploded in a shower of gore. The Wadi commander's body crumpled to the ground, his plasma blade clattering uselessly beside him. Stephen turned, looking back towards the city. In the distance he could see the Zephyrian forces rallying, inspired by the humans' bravery. They surged forward, driving the remaining Wadi troops back with renewed ferocity. The battle was won, but Stephen knew the war was far from over. The Wadi would be back, and there would always be another threat lurking in the stars. But as long as humanity stood ready to face those threats head-on, as long as men and women like his team were willing to fight and die for what was right, there was still hope. The cheers of the Zephyrian crowds filled the air as Stephen and his team stood on a hastily erected stage in the center of the capital. General Zorian stepped forward, his chest puffed out with pride. "On behalf of all Zephyrians, I thank you, brave humans, for your sacrifice and valor. You have saved our world and dealt a crushing blow to the Wadi menace. We are forever in your debt." Stephen nodded. Exhaustion etched into his face. The team had fought hard and the cost had been high, but for now at least they could savor their victory. The celebration was short-lived. Alarms blared across the city as Ares' voice crackled over their comms. "Captain, multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. It's a massive Wadi fleet, larger than anything we've seen before." Stephen's heart sank as a hologram of a Wadi commander appeared in the sky above them. The alien's features were twisted with rage and grief. "I am Admiral Zorgon, brother of Tharos, whom you murdered. You think you have won, but you have only sealed your doom. Now you will feel the full wrath of the Wadi Empire." The sky lit up as the Wadi ships opened fire, raining down plasma and destruction on the city below. Buildings crumbled, and fires raged as the bombardment intensified. "We need to evacuate the civilians," Stephen shouted over the chaos. "Get as many people to safety as you can." The team sprang into action, herding terrified Zephyrians towards underground shelters and transport ships. Ethan set up a triage center in a half-collapsed building, desperately trying to treat the wounded. As Stephen helped a group of children towards a waiting shuttle, he heard a cry for help. A young Zephyrian girl was trapped under a pile of rubble, her leg crushed and bleeding. Ethan rushed over, his face set with determination. "I'll get her out, cover me!" Stephen and the others laid down suppressing fire as Ethan dug through the debris. He managed to free the girl, cradling her in his arms as he ran back towards the shuttle. Suddenly, a plasma bolt struck the building above them. Tons of metal and concrete rained down directly in their path. Ethan shoved the girl into Stephen's arms and turned to face the falling debris. "Get her to safety. Go now." "No, Doc, wait." Stephen's cry was cut off as Ethan disappeared beneath the avalanche of rubble, his body shielding the child from harm. Stephen stood frozen, the girl sobbing in his arms. Ethan, the man who had patched them up and kept them alive through countless battles, was gone. Tears streamed down Stephen's face as he carried the child to the shuttle. The city was crumbling, the Wadi bombardment relentless. Stephen made the call he dreaded most. "All teams fall back to the extraction point. We're pulling out." They fought their way through the streets, plasma and debris filling the air. As they neared the stealth ship, a bolt caught Ryan in the chest. He fell, his suit's systems trying desperately to seal the breach. Jack and Oliver hauled him aboard as Stephen laid down covering fire. The ship lifted off, weaving through the chaos as the city burned beneath them. In the medical bay, Ryan floated in a Bacta tank, his body broken and barely clinging to life. The rest of the team sat in silence, numb with shock and grief. They set course for Earth, dreading the news they carried. The Wadi had been driven back, but at what cost? Ethan was dead, Ryan critically wounded, and the galaxy would never be the same. As they entered Earth's orbit, a message from the Galactic Council came through. Stephen read it, his face growing darker with each word. "They've made a deal with Zorgon. The Wadi will cease hostilities, but at a price. We're to be exiled, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Earth is on its own." The team sat in stunned silence. They had given everything, sacrificed so much, and now they were to be abandoned. The ship touched down at a secret base, and they were quickly debriefed by stone-faced council representatives. The gratitude felt hollow, the congratulations bitter in their mouths. And then it was over. The team dispersed, each trying to find their way in a world that no longer made sense. Stephen stood alone on a cliff, watching the stars he had once called home. They had fought for the galaxy, bled for it, and in the end, what had it gotten them? Isolation, exile, and the loss of friends closer than family. He thought of Ethan, buried beneath an alien sun, and Ryan, his fate uncertain. He thought of the lives they had saved, and the ones they hadn't. Had it been worth it? He wasn't sure anymore. The galaxy would go on without them. The Wadi would lick their wounds and plot their revenge, and the name of Earth would fade into memory. All Stephen could do was carry the weight of it, the knowledge of what they had done and what it had cost. He turned his back on the stars and walked away into an uncertain future. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.